Hey everyone, Mr. Gossard here. Welcome. I thought today I would give you a studio tour because I've had some students ask me. So let's go inside and see what we find. Come on in. Let's go. So, if we come downstairs, right in here, in this humble basement, is something I've been working on for a long time. This is the studio. So, let's take a look. Now, the first thing about the studio that a lot of people don't even think about is the room itself. This room is not the best room, but it's also not the worst room. It's a fairly decent size, so we can fit a lot of stuff in here. And also, most importantly, the sound waves can be somewhat diffused in here. But still, because it's rectangular, the sound waves can build up in the corners. And it's a little bit hard to explain, but when you're working on music, you really need to be able to hear what you're working on accurately, because if you take your song into a different room, you might find that it sounds completely different. So one thing that I've had to do in here, and you're going to see in any professional studio, is I've actually created these panels that are sound dampening panels. So what happens is when the sound comes out of these speakers, the first thing that happens is the sound comes out this way, and it hits this wall. And without this panel, the sound would reflect off of this wall, and a lot of frequencies would build up. And the same thing with this other wall from the other speakers. So you can see I've added these sound dampening panels to help control some of the vibrations in this room. And that all that does in the end is it allows me to know that what I hear from these speakers is what I'll hear when I listen to the song in my car or in your car or on a little boombox or a massive sound system. So with the room out of the way, oh, and by the way, there's also above my head because sound also goes up. So with the room itself out of the way, let's start taking a look at some of the things in the studio. Let's look at the instruments first. So I've had this for a long time. This is my Telecaster. It's made by Fender, and it's probably, if not my favorite guitar, it's certainly up there. I used to play this back when I was in my band back in the 2010s, and I love it to pieces, and I still use it all the time. This is my other really favorite guitar. This is an acoustic guitar that I built myself. And it's very special because it's solid wood all around. It's solid rosewood on the sides and back, and on the front, solid spruce. And if you look inside, actually, there's a little label where I put my name and the year that I made it. This guitar is the first electric guitar that I ever made myself. I bought the wood, which is ash, and I put a veneer on top that has this really, really pretty figuring in the wood. That's why it looks like that. And then I colored it that color. And yeah, that's the first electric guitar that I ever made, and I still really, really like it. This guitar, I'm still trying to decide what I want to do with it because it's really cool, but it has some issues, and I built this one myself, and I think I may actually redo this a little bit. This was my first guitar that I ever had, but it didn't look like that when I first got it. I've fixed it up over the years. My first guitar actually had a tent stake as the bridge because it was missing the bridge. And this guitar is a guitar that my neighbor gave to me, but it didn't look like that when he gave it to me either. It was actually sort of a pile of pieces of a guitar, and over the course of many months, I assembled it back together into a guitar and built a new top for it and basically put the whole thing back together. There wasn't much guitar there when I got there. Taking a look over here, this is my Fender Stratocaster copy that I made about a year ago, and I also love this one. This is a really, really nice guitar to play. So this is really, really, really cool. This is my drum set that a friend of mine, who also is the drummer in my band, built for me. He actually has a drum company called Delmarva Custom Drums, and he makes amazing, amazing drum sets. And it's just really, really cool. This one you can see is a little different though, because I've actually converted it into an electronic kit. You might wonder why I would do that. And the reason why I did that is because I can run a USB cable right from the drum module over to the computer, which we'll talk about in a minute, for recording. Over here, I built this furniture. You're going to see this this table here I built, and I built a matching piece over there as well for that amplifier. But over here I have some stuff for when I practice with my band, just a big speaker and a mixer. I've also got some guitar amplifiers, and the guitar amplifiers are very special too, because every amplifier, although all of them make the guitar louder, every amplifier also makes the guitar sound very different. And it's hard to explain in a little short video like this, but each one of these amplifiers has its own unique sound, and when you mix them together in a recording, it just creates this really full and rich sound. So you can see I have a microphone also that I use to record the sound of the guitar coming out of the amplifier. Which brings us to the heart of the music studio, and that is the computer. And the computer that I'm using is this 2018 Mac Mini, which is just absolutely great for what I need. So over here, actually, I built this desk too. I think this desk came out really, really nice. The computer is running Logic Pro, which is very similar to what I use with my students' Soundtrap, except that Soundtrap is a cloud-based system where you're logging in and you're using the computers in another place, basically. The computers in Soundtrap's headquarters are doing all of the work, and it's just sending it back to you, and that's why it says mixing sometimes when you're waiting for it to process. But in this case, all of the processing is done on this computer. And we can play a little bit of a song that I'm working on actually with my band, and we'll hear what it sounds like. You can see we can even solo different things. Takes me back to where and when we were all too young to see that high school dreams aren't meant to be. Believe with me, she said. We are alive for tonight. Get in the car, nowhere to go. Just drive until you see the dawn breaking through the trees. Darling, if I'm dreaming, don't wake me. So, as you can see, that one is pretty much close to being finished. Now, I've got some other really, really cool stuff down here that helps me with my music production. This is the interface where all of the instruments and microphones are plugged in. I use this microphone for vocals or voiceovers that I have to do. And it's a nice microphone, but it's not super expensive. Something I do have that's really nice that I borrowed from someone who was very generous is I borrowed this really, really nice microphone preamp, compressor, and equalizer that really colors the sound of this microphone in a really beautiful way. I also have some tools here for mixing the music, like this fader, which is really cool because it'll move by itself depending on how you've automated it. And this setup over here for doing equalization and compression is very, very cool, and it sounds great. And the last thing worth noting really are the speakers themselves, which it's kind of weird if I say this, but they're really actually designed to sound not that great. They're designed to sound the most average that they can possibly sound, because if you mix your music on a really nice set of speakers, then when you take it to a set of speakers that aren't as nice, you won't know what it'll sound like. It may sound very bad. So if you mix your music on these speakers that have a really, really even response and don't necessarily sound that great, then when you take it to a really nice set of speakers, it'll sound amazing. I know it sounds a little weird, but it definitely works. You might be wondering what this thing is in front of the microphone. This is called a pop filter. And you use this because if you talk into the microphone without one, every time you say a word with a P sound, it'll kind of go pwah. So the pop filter catches those, what we call plosives, those little bursts of air when you say the P sounds, and it keeps it from overloading the microphone, basically. One last thing I should note is I was always really inspired by the Goo Goo Dolls, and I had a chance to meet them one time, and I actually got this picture autographed by all of them, and I think that's really cool. So I keep it here in my music studio, to kind of remember where I come from. Well, anyway, that's all I've got for you. But I hope you enjoyed this little studio tour, and if you have any questions, we can definitely talk about it in class. All right, bye.